This episode of the Higher Level Podcast is brought to you by ItGel. ItGel are a CBD company who provide 100% organic and vegan products. If you pop over to their website, itgelcbd.co.uk, pop in the promo code HIGHER10 and get 10% off your first order. Paul, first of all, thanks very much for coming on the show, mate. We appreciate some time tonight.
Thanks for having me. Good doing it.
We always want to get guests on here. We really like to jump back into your background and obviously mixed martial arts and what first got you into the sport. And what age were you when you were first introduced to mixed martial arts or martial arts in general anyway?
Martial arts in general, I started when I was 5. Started with judo. My dad took me to see Karate Kid at the cinema and I said, I want to learn karate, and then next thing I know I'm in a judo suits running around the gaff, and stayed with judo for a while and ended up getting into like traditional jiu-jitsu. Did that from like the age of like 10 to 17, something like that. Got my black belt and stuff in that, and whilst I was sort of doing traditional jiu-jitsu, obviously the Gracies and UFC 1 and all that sort of stuff was like rampant at the time. So I always like sort of had an affinity towards like grappling, I suppose. And that sort of kicked it off. As well as I've done boxing, Thai boxing. I've got like a very extensive background in like Chinese martial arts as well. So I've studied quite a lot of stuff over the years. In 2002, I decided to go over to America to do MMA and learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with my coach, Chris Brennan. And I haven't looked back from there, really, I suppose.
And how was that experience? I've read somewhere you were speaking about, I think you were competing against quite a large wrestler over there.
That is a true story. But like I've asked someone to ask me about that in another podcast. I'm like, where was this? Where did everyone hear about this from? But I did a competition in Arizona, Desert Quest it was called, and at the time I was like, I think it was like 195 pounds was the cutoff for like light heavyweight. I think I was like 198 pounds and just thought, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to do the heavyweight division. And 300-pound state wrestling champion and judo champion walks out with a white belt on at his waist and proceeds to just like absolutely smash me around the gaff. Like, so it was a great competition experience. Like,
so was that your first experience with amateur wrestling? It would be facing that guy, the big wrestler.
Well, funnily enough, I thought to myself, because someone said to me, he was like, do you know who that guy is? He's like state wrestling champion and judo champion. I was like, I'm pulling guard. Like, sack this, I'm pulling guard. So I came out and I pulled butterfly guard. I've got it somewhere on DVD. I'll have to dig it out because everyone's asking me about it. And I hook swept the guy, and I was like, I had hold of his belt, I had hold of the sleeve. Like, he was all the way over, and I could hear the crowd go, no! And literally, just as he like fell onto his shoulder, he just like turned onto his knees and passed my guard and mounted me, and the rest of it was just unpleasant. Like, so.
See, for you, obviously, looking at your coach now, so you going over to America and experience and stuff like that, how invaluable was all that experience you gained going over there?
It was the best experience I ever did. It was like just before the sport was even really going over here. Because I lived at the gym, I learned more in like 6 months than like someone will learn in like 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? It was just like living that life, living that lifestyle of like training non-stop, training every day, being around fighters and, you know, just immersing yourself in that world before it was like even a thing, I suppose, you know, because it was like 2002, it's like the birth of when everything started. Because I think MMA really started getting big in the UK when Bisping won the Ultimate Fighter. I think that was like the real catalyst for like growth of MMA in the UK. And it was like quite a few years before that even happened. I suppose it's weird because I still think of myself in that sort of bubble like it was like a few years ago, and it's not. It's like 20 years ago. So like I look back on it with fond memories. It was like the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think sometimes when somebody says to me 1980s, my brain automatically goes to that was just 20 years ago. I'm forgetting we're another 21 years past the millennium, know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's
I don't know if that's just me trying to sort of latch onto my youth, but I've just accepted it's gone now.
Yeah, like aging maths is different from maths. You know what I mean? It's just like it's a roundabout time of like, yeah, I was 20 years old like 5 years ago. You're like, no, it wasn't. It was 25 years ago.
And that's still until you try to do something strenuous, like get out the chair and you're like, oh, shit, actually, maybe.
Well, I had to lug a load of wood up the stairs in the gym today because we're having a refurb and like I'm exhausted after doing it. So yeah, I know exactly how that is.
That's father time, man. But just back to that experience out in America, when you go, obviously in Europe, we've always been known for our stand-up, our Thai, kickboxing. We've always been pretty well versed in that over here. But when you go over there and you see the levels of grappling over here in comparison to the UK and stuff like that, how big was the difference?
It was massive, and I think that's like one of the things that really helped establish like my gym and fight team, especially in the early years, because the gym I was at was a very jiu-jitsu based MMA gym. So like grappling was like the prevalent martial art, if you know what I mean. So like we had great access to like some really, really high level jiu-jitsu guys when there wasn't really a lot of them. And then bringing that back to the UK and like basing sort of my gym on that sort of style, I think it like really, really helped us out a lot.
Yeah, and James, you'll be able to speak to this as well. Obviously, competing and being in around the sport for so long, you've seen the development of the grappling to where it is now in the UK versus where it was back then when Paul's speaking about.
Yeah, Paul's gym's always kind of been at the forefront of MMA grappling in this country as well. Every guy's always going to be really excellent on the ground and stuff. It's interesting when Paul's talking about his background, it's because we're about a similar age, it's really similar. You go and watch martial art films, you go in and start looking for classes and stuff, and generally it's like whatever's closest to your house, you start it. Like that's how I ended up in karate and stuff. And then when the kind of boom for MMA started happening and stuff like that, it's like you have to go elsewhere and seek stuff out. And it's really similar to like the rest of the coaches about my age. And I think what's kind of cool about it is Paul's became probably the exact coach or the type of coach he would have wanted as a kid starting martial arts. He's been through like 20 or 30 years of training, and now you're getting guys can walk into his class and they're getting that level of coaching straight away. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, and sorry, on you go, Paul.
No, I was going to say it's kind of like as James was saying, like coaches of a certain age, they will have had to have gone probably through a traditional martial art. Mm-hmm. And like I know everyone like is like sort of down on traditional martial arts in this like day and age, but I genuinely think that like traditional martial artists can sometimes breed a better mixed martial artist. It's they have that like tradition and discipline that like sometimes is lost sometimes in gyms. I think like especially like the sort of having like the right relationship with an instructor. Like I think that comes better sometimes from traditional martial arts than it does from mixed martial arts. And I feel like, especially you really start to see it now, a lot of the stuff that you would have said that would never have worked like 10 years ago in MMA, you're starting to see a lot of it coming into play from people seeking out more traditional coaches. Like a lot of people working with Taekwondo coaches. You know, you're seeing a lot of people using judo coaches. You're seeing a lot of that sort of stuff like come back into trend because people sort of understand what's going to get thrown at them from being in the gym every day and that sort of stuff. But some of them outside influences start to kind of creep back in. And I think, like I say, you know, the sort of guys that like train maybe like a traditional martial art now, when probably training their traditional martial art like people were training like 1980, 1990 sort of time, because people would put the heart and souls into karate. You know, I was fortunate enough to work on the door with a guy called Terry O'Neill, who put as much time and effort into his karate and his training as any of my fighters do now with MMA. And he was just doing it for a love of his martial art, not for competition or for any other reason. And I think, like I say, people from them traditional martial arts background, they have like a different sort of passion for martial arts that didn't work that well. So when they move over into MMA, they've got like this passion for martial arts that's not come from watching a Conor McGregor or a GSP or any of that sort of thing. It comes from a genuine love of martial arts.
Yeah, and you can see there is. I remember when Lyoto Machida burst onto the scene, and obviously his specialism was karate and some of the stuff he done. So you do see sometimes that stuff with traditional martial arts leaking its way back in with certain techniques and stuff like that.
Well, his foot sweeps are second to none. Like I don't think there's, I know Peter Yan's pretty good at them, but like I don't think I've ever seen anyone as good at foot sweeping as Machida was. I don't even think I've ever seen anyone who can probably time a straight backhand in the same sort of way that he can from his traditional martial arts training. You know, everyone will always remember him for that kick. You know what I mean? Like, that front snap kick. But when I watch him fight, and it wasn't that long ago that we were rewatching all the Machida foot sweep stuff in the gym because we were going through it with some of the guys, but he was phenomenal, and no one knew how to deal with him, because to deal with him, that meant you had to bring someone in who had his style of karate, his level of karate, but also could do MMA. And I think that's like a really important thing. People don't understand. I've got a kid in the gym called Connor Wilson. I have no doubt in my mind that he'll be the Cage Warriors flyweight champion in a couple of years. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. He comes from a very traditional Shotokan background. And lads in the gym who've been sparring for years still can't figure out his game. It's not a Thai boxing game. It's not a boxer's game. It's not like anything you've ever seen, because he can do all them things as well. But they come from the training that he brought up with, his flexibility, his movements, his power. It's not, like I say, it's not Thai boxing. It's not boxing. It's not a hybrid. It comes from his traditional background.
Yeah, and for the gym, see, having a kid like that in the gym as well, Paul, how beneficial is that to the other guys in the gym training, that they're getting to see that in the gym?
It's so beneficial, especially since he brought his brother, who's better at karate than him, into the gym, and we've been training with him. But like between them, they must have about 400 or 500 knockouts. It's ridiculous, because they're doing like a style of karate that's based around kicking and full contact. They can go and compete every week. There's no like brain scans. There's no safe MMA. So they go to a tournament, it's open weight, and they compete against guys maybe 30, 40 pounds heavier than them and knocking them out with head kicks every week. It's competitive traditional martial arts,
And surely that competitive experience as well, that's invaluable for guys when they're coming through as well, having that amount of fights.
Well, I think one of the things with traditional martial arts, to get back on it, is that their idea of competition is not the same as sport and competition of combat sports. Okay, so like I think people come from different sorts of backgrounds in it. So, for example, like I grew up doing sanshao or sanda, as some people call it, which is like it's like a Chinese kickboxing on a platform with wrestling. So like when I came into MMA, I understood the benefits of striking into takedowns, not just train them separately, if you know what I mean. So like I always thought that came in handy with me when I first started coaching, to kind of bridge that gap of getting striking to clinch to the floor. It was kind of natural for me to do. I just had never learned the floor until I started learning jiu-jitsu, I suppose.
Yeah, and the other thing you were just mentioned when you were talking about both of you coming through, do you just ever look at the guys you've got in the gym and just think to yourself how lucky these guys are that they've got the facilities and the level of coaching and training that they've got these days?
It's not 1999 anymore, is it? You know what I mean? It's phenomenal. You can literally find a gym on every street corner these days, I suppose, in one way or another. And, you know, I think the next 10 years will also be a massive thing, because you've got the guys sort of like the first era of fighters in the UK. And then you've got like the second generation of fighters in the UK, which I think probably like, James, would you class yourself as like the second generation?
I'm probably about fourth generation.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all. Like,
I think I was second. There's some guys up here who I would look up to as my peers, like John Nicholson and stuff like that, had already competed before me. So I think probably second generation, man. So like,
what generation would you say the guys in the gyms that we're training on now? Would you say they're like fifth, sixth sort of generation?
Yeah, I think I've got under me, I think I've got 4 generations of students competing. So my first generation would have been Paul McVeigh, into Martin Delaney and Graham Turner. And then after that, Joanne and Stevie. And then a bit younger like Danny, Henry, and Callum Murray and stuff like that. And then I've got these guys that are like Mark Ewan and stuff like that, who've had 15 amateur fights turning pro now. So in terms of just pro guys, I think maybe my 4th generation. And then I would class myself as the second generation. So about 6, I think, did I?
Yeah, like it's scary to think what the guys are going to be like when we get to like the 15th, 16th generation. You know, like I've got kids in the gym. And when I say kids, I mean kids like 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And they're all super well-rounded, like adult pros are. They just don't have fighting experience like the adult pros can get. It's really, really scary. Like I say, as the generations keep sort of passing on and more things are kind of like brought in or thrown away from the sport, you're going to see like a completely different level of athlete. It's really scary, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, even just you see the level of guys fighting recently in Cage Warriors and stuff like that. Obviously, we'll speak about Paddy in a moment, but the levels, you can just see them constantly getting higher and higher all the time in the UK, and it's great to see. Even when you get to, obviously we've not had any in a while, but some of just the regional shows you go to, and the level of some guys on them is mind blowing at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's one of the things about the pandemic that's been bad. Like, there's been pros and cons to it, but like if you look at the fighting scene, I think like one of the biggest pros is Cage Warriors showing everyone how professional they are, and like that I think is sort of the standard that you should be looking to get your guys to. Okay, but the cons are obviously like a lot of the smaller local shows, they haven't had the chance. So the kids that want to build themselves up to get signed to Cage Warriors, they haven't had a platform to be able to do that. It's probably going to, after we come out of lockdown, you're probably going to see a lot of people who have like maybe a flourishing fight career just about to do something with it, maybe aren't doing it anymore, which is a bit sad, I suppose. Because there would have been some superstars in that group that like have sort of like gone, you know what, work's more important. I had a kid over lockdown or whatever and decided, you know, fighting's not for them anymore or whatever. You're going to see like a lot of them things. So I think we're going to have like a sort of bit of a black period where, you know, you're going to get a lot of guys making the debuts and stuff, but you won't see the same faces on the scene anymore, maybe.
Yeah, you just got to hope just got to hope things are back sooner rather than later. Thankfully, we've got some promotions putting on shows. Obviously, you've got Cage Steel and stuff like that coming up, but it will be interesting to see what the landscape's like once we can start getting the more regional scene back up and running.
What if all the journeymen have like decided to pack it in, and there's no more like cans for people to crush and stuff these days? You know what I mean? It's gonna be good times anyway. But right. I think the scene will naturally rebuild itself. It's always going to do that. I think you're going to see more gyms opening up and all that sort of stuff as well. But I just like to see the scene get back on the rise again. I think that's what it needs to be.
Maybe some of these journeymen as well have spent the fully lockdown watching Karate Kid and watching videos for Defence Lab and all that, and they're going to come back out absolute stone cold killers.
I hope so, mate. I hope so.
That would be fun. That you spoke of that earlier, Karate Kid. How big a movie is that for a lot of the guys around about our age, your age now? How big a movie is that, and how many martial artists do you think that got actually started training? There must be a massive amount.
Well, I suppose the thing that you got to look at is like Cobra Kai now. Like, how many kids are going to get into training because of Cobra Kai? It's like the same sort of effect. But I just, like I say, I just remember going to watch the film and I was like, wow, like, look at this. I was one of them kids that was never into football or, I didn't really have like a second sort of sport. I was just like hooked from the word go. This is me. This is what I'm doing. And then like, I think my nan brought me a Bruce Lee video for Christmas when I was about 9 or something. And then that was it again. I was just like, wow, this is like...
How often were you running about shouting, sweep the leg, Johnny?
Well, I was just talking about Machida, like who's got a better foot sweep, Johnny or Machida,
Listen, the burning question though, I've got to ask, if you're going to throw in a gi, is that a Miyagi Dojo gi, or you going full heel and going Cobra Kai?
I'm more Miyagi though. I'm more of a like more of a counterer than the aggressor. You know what I mean?
James, you've got that menacing look in your eyes. I'm going to put my money down and say you're definitely Cobra Kai. You've got to be.
I would have been Miyagi-Do until Cobra Kai, but then I kind of like Johnny now. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah, he's turned to the dark side.
But who do you think's got a better style to be suited towards MMA, James? Do you think it'd be Cobra Kai or Miyagi?
Christ, that wee hot guy might be alright. He's a bad wee bastard.
Because I remember that I watched the thing where they were talking about the making of Cobra Kai, and they were saying that they train them in 2 different types of karate. One's more of a taekwondo sort of aggressive style, and the other one's more of like a traditional sort of style. I was like, oh yeah, I can see that when you're watching it.
Yeah, you can actually. One's a wee bit more kind of fluid with the kicking and stuff, and the other one's a wee bit more kind of rigid, but I don't know.
See, I think Miyagi-Do those would have been better for lockdown. You know what I mean? The amount of gardens getting done, painting fences and all that, they've been perfect. So, obviously, as well, we want to talk about Paddy Pimblett coming off his last performance.
Yeah,
looked fantastic. Then, obviously, he got the call to the UFC. Was it? See, because of the time lost in lockdown and stuff like that, was it just? You just knew it's the time for Paddy to make that move to the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, he spent a lot of his career on Cage Warriors. He only had a few fights outside of Cage Warriors when sort of Cage Warriors had the hiatus, but there wasn't really much left for him to achieve there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we were sort of thinking like, when's it going to happen? What's going on with it, sort of thing. And he got the call after his last fight, which is like more than we could, we could have predicted.
And just in terms of the performance itself, I mean, he looked great. He just walked through his opponent. It was he looked good, really good in the feet. Then it was just a really all round great performance from him. How happy were you with the fight itself?
Really good. I mean, like, anytime someone from the gym fights, we prepare for them like the best in the world. And like, we knew David Martinez was actually a really good wrestler. He's got good jiu-jitsu as well. We felt that probably the hole in his game was going to be his striking. And the plan was for Paddy to do more striking in that fight. We wanted to kind of show his improved striking off. But if you make a mistake grappling against him, he's just going to be all over it. And that's what happened. It's his natural jiu-jitsu skills kick in, and it was just game over from the moment he clinched him.
And James as well. I mean, that performance, that was a statement to say it was time, wasn't it? Like Paul saying, there was just nothing else for Paddy to do in the European scene.
No, it was always going to be a question of when Paddy goes to the UFC. Everybody's known that since he was a kid. The good thing about that performance was he called it. He said before it was going to be quick. It'll either be a first round knockout or a first round submission. It's going to be a quick night for you. And then he's went out and executed it against a good level pro, and it's fucking not an easy thing to do that. Like, and that's what makes him so watchable. Like, it takes a lot of balls to put your prediction out there to the entire world. And I think Paddy's under more pressure than most other fighters because of the following he's got and his reputation, and everybody knows, like, the whole city's behind him. And he's went out there and just done it. Like, he's been flawless that night, man. He's been absolutely punch perfect. So I can't wait to see him fight in the UFC, man. I'm excited to watch him fight.
Yeah, the thing is, well, most guys get into UFC and debut, and there'll be nerves, there'll be all that, but Paddy's had so much on his shoulders in Cage Warrior. He's fought in front of massive crowds. He's obviously so popular as a fighter that it's almost like even guys that have been in the UFC for a while and had a few fights in there, Paddy's probably still had more pressure fighting outside the UFC than some of the guys in the UFC will have experienced themselves.
But, I mean, you have to think to yourself, like, he's been hyped for going to the UFC since he was like 21. So, like, that's like 5 years. And any time that he's won a fight, everyone's like, when you going to UFC? And anytime he's lost a fight, everyone's always been like, you're not ready for UFC. And I've seen a lot of people, like, in the comment sections on stuff where, like, he's been tagged in it, and, like, you're going to get mauled in the UFC. You got beat by Nad Narimani. Now, Nad was a really, really good featherweight. James, I know that because, I know Graham Turner fought him and stuff. Like, Nad's super, super legit. He's very, very good. He's a black belt, great wrestling, trained abroad, done all them things. Like, you have to remember, Paddy was like 20, 21 when they fought, and it was a 5-rounder,
Yeah.
He got beat by Soren back. Soren was finishing everyone on the European scene. That first round, the Paddy, I don't know how he didn't tap to that choke or whatever. But that was another 5-rounder, and that was only Paddy's second fight at lightweight.
Yeah.
I think he was 23 when he fought Soren back. So you have to think to yourself, like, at the age of 21 and 23, he fought one of the best featherweights in Europe, and he fought one of the best lightweights in Europe outside the UFC. Like, that's just experience. Like, people look at them like the negative things, but they're not negative things. They're always positive things, because it's made him into who he is now. Is he a different fighter when he fought them 2 fights? He's a completely different fighter from when he fought them 2 fights. And on top of that, he's had to have surgeries on his hands and that sort of stuff, You're talking about a kid that's, like, had a career, achieved way more than probably most people achieve in the sport, and now he's just signed for the UFC at 26. People don't give him credit for that.
Yeah, and the other thing with Paddy as well, he's got that thing that all fighters have. I mean, he's the UFC. Look at it, and you know yourself, he's extremely marketable, and is that something as a coach you're fortunate to get in a fighter when they're so marketable and they're talented as well? Because it's presumably as a coach, it's the one thing you don't have control of is how good they are on camera, and you know what I mean?
No, you don't. I don't. He is him, just like you're you and James is James. The stuff that he comes out with and says that people love or hate. I think that's the thing about marketability. If people love you and people hate you, then you get 2 sets of eyes watching you. Like, if people just love you, then, like, you're only getting half the eyes on you, aren't you?
Aye. And James, as you'll know yourself, I mean, it's maybe not all people want to admit it, but it's a big part of the sport. It's being marketable. It's as long as you've got the skills to back it up, it's going to help you go a long way in the sport.
Yeah, and Paul's knocked it on the head there. Paddy's just been himself. There's so many guys in the sport trying to be something that they're not. And more so after the way corners kind of came about, and now everybody's wearing suits to press conferences and trying to talk shit and whatever else. But that's corner being corner, the same way Paddy's been Paddy. And like you said, you need to be able to back up in the cage. Like it's all very. I know guys that they can talk the talk all day, but they're not getting in there and competing at the level Paddy is. And those fights that Paul's mentioned there, Paddy's been fighting UFC level fights since he was 21 years old. Do you know what I mean? They're guys like Nad's obviously in the UFC now, backs away to Bellator, but these are guys who are, if there is such thing as UFC level, these guys are that. And Paddy's dealing with them, and he's probably in between 21 and 26 is a massive growth spot for fighters, especially when he's involved in competition at that level regular. And you can see now as well, what I noticed in the last fight, he looks like he's filling it into a good size lightweight now. He's big at feather and stuff, and when you seen Soren back, I can't believe that Soren back never tapped to that choke either. I was watching that in the house and I was like, oh, he's done him like really quick. And I think now that Paddy's filled out a wee bit and growing in, he looks like a good size lightweight. With that skill set, there's nobody like that in that lightweight division with the same skill set as Paddy. So there's going to be some good fights there, man. And it's not like he's stepping up in class. Like he's beat Arosa, who's there winning. He's been competitive with Nad and stuff like that. He's stepping into a field where he's going to win fights.
Well, like, I mean, again, like, you know, I won't never make excuses for anyone losing fights or whatever, but I can say that, like, when Paddy fought Nad, he was very immature. He was partying through his fight camps. Me and him had a terrible time. We were always arguing. He'll speak honestly about it. He wasn't mature enough to be where he was at the time. When he fought back, he had a broken hand. He fought that fight with a broken hand, and like I wasn't in his corner for that fight either, because I ended up in hospital literally the day of his fight. He had a lot of stuff going on, as well as the pressure of the Echo Arena and stuff. And, you know, you're never going to keep him down. He's always going to come back. He's always going to kind of rise to the occasion. You know, UFC is full of the best fighters in the world. Paddy could go in on a tear. He could go in and get beaten his first fight. And he's going to get equal amounts of pressure and criticism and praise. And he'll deal with that the same way he's dealt with it his whole life. But compared to a 26-year-old that's in the UFC, that's got no hype around him, it's got a small fan base or whatever like that, like, I would rather have a fighter in Paddy's position than I would in the other position. You know what I mean? Paddy set himself up for a career outside of MMA if he wants to. He set himself up for more sponsorships. He set himself up for all the things that, like, fighters struggle with. Mm-hmm. And that's half the life. Like, you know, James will know, you've got these kids sometimes and, like, you're looking at them like, you know, if they just had the opportunities that, like, they needed, they'd be in such a great place. But, like, Paddy's created his own opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, he's never had to go and beg or ask or do any of them things. He's built them things himself. You know, I'd never seen, I'll be really honest, because it kind of shocked me. Like, obviously I knew he'd signed for UFC, but the amounts of promotion he put behind him and got behind him, I'd never seen that before for anyone. Had you?
Nah. You can tell, like, they're invested in him, I think, already, and he's not even fought there. People are speaking about him and he's not even made his debut yet. And I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on his debut. And I bet there's a lot of people watching his last fight in Cage Warriors knowing that it was probably his last fight in Cage Warriors and stuff like that. So I think he's due for big things, man.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You know, like I say, it's all on him now. I'm kind of what he does with the platform that they provide him.
Yeah, and imagine now if they obviously get back to normal and the UFC can put on a card in Liverpool. You know, the guys for Team Cowboy and Paddy and Next Gen as well. I mean, that'd be something pretty special for the city.
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest with you, and like Paddy will probably hate me saying this, but like my guys support in the Echo Arena loads. Like, I want Madison Square Garden, and like, you know, I want experiences that we've like never had. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Like, don't get me wrong, I would love nothing more to see the Echo Arena filled out and Darren Till and Molly and Paddy and everyone fighting on it. I would love that. But just as much, like, I want to be on the other side of the world, the Madison Square Garden, going, oh shit, you know, we're fighting here. Like, it's a totally different thing in itself. You know,
you're just looking forward to getting out the UK, aren't you?
Listen, no, like, James will tell you, like, you know, it's especially with COVID now, going to different places all around it's not the same. It's not the same at all. Went to Las Vegas for Molly's fight, and we had to quarantine pretty much the whole time we were there. It's like, you know, it's not like you can go out and gamble on the strip or do any of them sorts of things. It's just the Echo Arena, I suppose, like, they put the UFC logos up, but he's been there. He's been the man at the Echo Arena. Like, I want to see him be the man at Madison Square Garden, and what, you know what I mean? Just like me and Molly speak about it all the time, because she's got that in her head that's one of her dreams, to fight at Madison Square Garden. And like, I'm like, yeah, definitely 100%. That's like where you belong. It's like the home of fighting. It's like, that's where she wants to go. Paddy will fight you in a car park. You know what I mean? with someone watching eating a bag of chips. He's not bothered. Like, you know what I mean? He'll still put his music on and have a straight in a car park.
Yeah, that's it. I've got to ask as well, this is something we ask every coach that comes on here, I do anyway. And the leading up to a fight, that fight week, what are you like in terms of your nerves and how you're feeling leading up to it? Do you get nervous or?
I get more nervous probably on the day of the fight than any other time. Like, I would say. And I think probably just before the walkout happens is probably like the most nerve-wracking time, because you've done the warm-up. There's nothing else to be done. You can't do anything more for the fighter, and then you literally just walk out there in the cage, and you have no time to be worried or anything like that. You're literally just like on your job. That's sort of how it is for me.
Yeah, so it's like we've spoken about it before, James. Is it just that lack of control that there's nothing more really you can do?
It's like that's your kind of, and to an extent, that's your involvement done. Most of it's on them now. You can obviously call instructions and stuff to the side and stuff like that, but it's like you're relying on the fighter to kind of play their part. And when it gets to that stage, a lot of the time it's like you're just a bit of an observer watching how it's going to play out when it gets to that stage, man. I'm pretty much the same. I'm waiting on the runner. That's a bit for me, just waiting on the guy coming to say, right, let's go. And then, but as soon as the bell goes, it's fine. You just go into coach mode again and call what you see and whatever else.
I always think like the first 30 seconds of a fight are the most nervous for me. Because like it's like, whoa, is anything unexpected going to happen in that first 30 seconds? Oh no, okay, we're good. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I talk about that just first contact. It's like, and you can usually tell a lot how the fight's going to go with the first 30 seconds. Like, you feel it sometimes. Like, there's been times when stuff's happened and I'm like, this is going to be a good night for us. Or other times I'm like, fuck, right, we've got some figuring out today here. But the first exchange, I think, is definitely the worst bit, man. And then as soon as it starts, you're like, all right, here we go.
Especially like if you've worked on a specific game plan for a fight, and then within the first 30 seconds, you see an element of it work, like a takedown defense or like something specific, like or someone landing a takedown. You're like, okay, he's got this. I know he's going to be good. You know what I mean? Yeah,
we had that at the last Cage Warriors we were at with Stevie McIntosh. He was fighting Mehdi Ben Ladiker, and all the footage we'd seen of this, Mehdi had been him counter fighting on the back foot, just waiting and faking. So we've done stuff with Stevie, just faking, going forward, drawing stuff, and then looking to go. And Mehdi decided to fuck with our plans and came out 100 mile an hour. And I was just like, oh shit! Like 6 or 7 weeks worth of cutting the cage off and using kicks to keep him where we needed him and stuff like that. And he just didn't play ball at all. And then after it, he was like, I looked back at my last fights and I thought everybody's expecting me to counter, so I thought I'd try something different. I was like, yeah, fuck it. Absolute nightmare.
What would the nightmare be then if you were in the opposing corner, if you were in Ben Askren's corner coaching when he fought Masvidal?
Like, I think that fight, like, I can't ever see anyone ever turn around to Ben Askren and going, you need to watch out the first 5 seconds of the fight. You know, he might run out and fly in the air. Like, I don't know about, like, when I was watching the fight, sometimes if you watch amateur MMA, like really low level amateur MMA, the two guys will sprint across the cage to each other and like jump in the air at the same time. It's like a weird thing that like it's undescribable. And I remember watching it thinking, are they gonna do that? And then he kneed him in the face. And I was just like, oh no, he wasn't doing that at all. You know what I mean? But I think I always say to the guys, like, in MMA, there's a couple of ways for you to win a fight, but there's like unlimited ways for you to lose. Because when you go into a fight, you've got like these things in your head, going to keep it standing. Coach has been telling me to look for this shot, or I'm going to get the takedown, I'm going to try and get the back, I'm going to do these things. So you're working on specifics and you have no idea what the other person's going to throw at you. You know, was it Modestus in the UFC where the guy opened the cage door and he fell out and he lost the fight? Like, you know, at what point was that in the game plan? Listen, if you're sitting against the door, make sure you move because the guy's going to open the door and you're going to lose the fight. Like, you can't predict a way that your fight is going to lose. You can have a good idea. You can say, you know what, that guy is so good at Darce chokes. There's a really good chance he's going to Darce choke. You've got to watch out for these things. But there's still more unpredictable stuff, like a flying knee in the first 5 seconds, you know, spinning back kick to the body. Like that's what I was saying before about the traditional martial arts. People are throwing stuff out there that, like, you may never have seen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what makes the sport so interesting and so fun, though, because it can be so unpredictable.
Like, I would say the majority of us probably thought that Ben Askren was going to wrestle his way to a decision probably in that match. You know, that's what we expect. But the reality wasn't that at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is exactly why I don't.
There's an element of chaos to fights. Like, just when you think you've got something figured out or you've systemised something like that will happen, and you're like, do you know what? You're trying to control something which by nature is chaotic here, and you can only control 50% of it because you don't know what the other guy's going to do. You see this, and I think the thing is when you get to UFC level, you're obviously dealing with guys where they are more systemised. Like, you know, they've got tendencies, they've had big long backgrounds of fights, so you can watch them and be like, he does this and he does that, or he's going to pressure me, he's going to hang off, he wants to go on the ground, he passes to his left, whatever, he's good with Darcy's, and then you watch it and they can pull something completely out the blue and it just throws everything you think you know about the sport. I've been predicting fights recently, and I've been watching like background, and then you try and predict it, trying to be like, have some kind of system, right? This guy's bad at this and this guy's good at this. So generally when two system styles like that match, this is what's going to happen. This guy's no formula, this guy's a better athlete. And you just can't predict them. It's like impossible. I think if I pick 8, I'm getting 4 right, 4 wrong every week.
It's even if they fought like a common opponents, you know, someone like two fights that fought common opponents, and you're like, well, I think he does well against the blah blah, and you can still be completely off the mark with it. Yeah,
it's crazy, man. And then there's another thing where we're talking with the Ben Askren thing. I've had this conversation with a couple of my guys. I think if you stick around in the sport long enough, something like that's going to happen to you. Like, you're on the receiving end of that, but at some point you're the one dishing that out as well. You know, it's all very well and good when you're the guy running it and one punching the guy, but if you keep competing and keep competing and keep competing, eventually you're going to be on the other side of that. It's just like the laws of probability, I suppose. But
we had a betting system in the gym, a few of us, where we worked out that basically if you'd fell out with Dana and you hadn't been active in the last 6 months, you were probably going to get beaten your next fight. Like, Ben Askren ticks them boxes, doesn't he? Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's a bit of a weird one because he was happy and settled in life, undefeated. Like, no one had come close to beating him in like for ONE FC and Bellator. Like, he was comfortable. He didn't need to push himself out of his comfort zone. Been retired for a while, and then obviously gets the one deal and gets signed to UFC, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, he wasn't that good. he was that good. He was just probably at a different point in his life where he was thinking to himself, like, I'm never going to fight again. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that with my life. And then money and fighting presents its opportunity. And, you know, he's always going to come down to that guy that never quite made it in the UFC now. Yeah. And all that legacy that he built before him was, you know, everyone was like, him versus GSP and all these like things, you know, they just went away in a flying knee. It's crazy, do you know what I mean?
It's one of them as well. You go, I think Ben Askren, he needed a hip replacement as well when he came back into the UFC.
Did he?
He's had a hip replacement since.
He got one. Yeah, he couldn't warm up. He was in our changing room when Stevie fought Michael Johnson. He fought Damian Maia. He was in the main event, and he never warmed up. He got changed, put his hoodie on, and sat, and didn't warm up. Man, actually went out and fought, and then it was after that I was like, why did he not warm up? And he's like, my hip's fucked. I think he gets hip replaced after the Maia fight, but he was saying there was like certain movements were aggravating it and stuff like that. And the other thing I remember about that was, I think I've spoken about this before, we're sitting in a changing room, so there was me, Stevie, I think Benil Dariush and someone else, the guy for Tiger, but they had a big screen up for us to watch the fights, and for non-stop for about 2.5 hours, Ben Askren was getting bombarded with the video of him getting knocked out with a flying knee. Like, look at it. I was like, Jesus, fucking somebody turn that off, man. I felt terrible for him. I was like, this is bad.
Yeah, people don't really think about them sorts of things, but, you know, like, if you do suffer a horrendous knockout at a show, like, expect to see the footage of that replayed over and over and over again on the VT in the thing in the back. You know, it's people don't see that, do they? Do you know what I mean? It's not a nice thing at all.
No, that shit can haunt a fighter as well. And Christ, it could get worse for Ben Askren. Imagine if Jake Paul knocks him out. Jesus Christ.
You could, but the thing is, like, James will know this, you can literally be standing ready to walk your fighter out, and you'll hear someone go, roll VT or whatever, and then you'll hear the crowd go, ooh, and you know it's the knockout that they just suffered from the fight beforehand. And, like, you know as well, the crowd sort of, like, they dictate a lot of it. Like, how many of them are hoping that you're going to get knocked out with another one of the flying knees again? It's nuts, like.
Paul, what do you think about obviously Ben Askren fighting again in boxing? I think it's safe to say it's not his forte, but he's going in there against obviously YouTuber Jake Paul.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest white collar match of all time.
But it sounds like Ben's getting paid more for this than he did for any of his UFC fights. So
fair play to him. 100%. He's probably going to get more views of this than any of his UFC fights. You know, You've got to remember, like, to us, like, MMA is everything, but really, it's actually still quite a small thing to everyone else, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, my daughter doesn't know who Ben Askren is, but she knows who Jake Paul is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we think of Ben Askren maybe as the star because he's in our world, but, you know, does Ben Askren have, like, however many subscribers on YouTube that all the kids see? So we don't look at it the same sort of way. We're biased naturally towards Ben Askren. But if I said to my daughter, who do you want to win, Ben Askren or do you want Jake Paul to win? She ain't going to say Ben Askren, is she?
No, absolutely. It's probably smart business for Jake Paul because obviously in the MMA community, Ben's got a name and he's not known obviously for his striking. So and at the end of the day, Ben Askren gets a huge payday out of it. So
it breaks my heart to say it, but whenever I watch videos of Ben Askren striking and I watch videos of Jake Paul striking, I kind of feel like Jake Paul's got this, you know. Like I hope Ben Askren comes out and clinches the shit out of him, wears him down, and then, you know. But I don't know. There's just when I watch them punching, there's a bit of a difference, and I know pad work is not fighting, but like. I feel like Ben's got just as much work to do as Jake has. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If not more, I suppose.
See, in my mind, I'm secretly thinking Ben Askren's actually been trolling us all for years. His striking's amazing, and he's just set us all up because he knew this was going to happen. or that's how I'm justifying it in my head, because I can't say Jake Paul will beat him, even though I probably agree with you on that.
Well, everyone's looking at like Ben Askren was an MMA fighter, fantastic. However, he was a wrestler, primarily wrestling based. That's number one. Number two, you got to ask yourself this: what's the age difference between the two of them?
Ben Askren's older. Aye, he's late 30s.
Big either.
Yeah, Jake's massive. You know, when you see them next to each other, Jake's wrestled. He's competitive. You know, he's been boxing. He's boxed on like a big stage as well. You know, when he boxed KSI, you know, you've got to think to yourself, like, how many people watch that? It's as big as like a Mayweather fight. You know, he's got confidence in himself. Like, and you know as well as I do, them fighters that have confidence in themselves, if they were getting beaten up every day and not doing what they thought they were doing, they wouldn't be as confident. But Jake's pretty confident. And as I said to you before, when Ben came out of retirement to go to the UFC, like, how much of this is based upon him getting a good payday? And I don't know. I just have this horrendous feeling that, like, you know, will Jake Paul knock him out? Probably not. Is there a good chance he might outbox him? Yeah, there is. There's every chance that might happen.
Yeah, there'll be stuff in the contract where Ben Askren will be allowed to clinch. He'll not be allowed to hold and stuff like that, man. I think the ref will be quick to break it. So he's going to be in a long-range boxing match with a younger guy who's bigger, probably at this point in career, better athlete. And I think that guy's been boxing pretty much. He's got so much money. He can just train with like really good boxing coaches full-time. And I think he's been doing it for about 4.5 to 5 years almost now. So I'm with you, man. I think I'll not be watching it. I expect fucking Ben Askren to get doing.
Now, I would love nothing more than for Ben to win and then Jake have to say, I'll fight you in an MMA fight. I would love that to happen because we both know what's going to happen in that fight. You know what I mean? But boxing is not Ben Askren's sport. Why do you think they picked Ben Askren? That's like the other question. Like, why is he fighting Ben Askren? Like, it's because of his lack of striking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. They weren't exactly calling it Rob. I've got Robbie Lawler around. I've got to ask if you get a phone call. So you know
great example. Yeah, Ben's out, Robbie Lawler's in. Oh yeah, well I bet you Jake's out then. Do you know what I mean?
What about you, Paul? If you get a phone call for the Paul brothers, how much would it take for you to jump in the ring?
I boxed them.
Box them? What's the number?
Oh, I haven't done pads for quite a while. Let's put it that way. I just stick to doing jiu-jitsu more than anything these days. But if anyone want a jiu-jitsu match, go on. I'll do that. Like, how much does Logan train? Because if Logan Paul doesn't train that much, maybe I'll throw the gloves on.
I think Logan's bigger than Jake, though. That's the only problem. Because he's meant to be fighting Mayweather.
Listen, I fought heavyweights in Arizona, mate. I'll be sound.
I secretly see that wrestler you fought in Arizona. It's the Paul brother's uncle.
I'll pull half guard them all, mate. I'll be sound.
So just the last few for me, Paul, and then I'll let you go. And obviously, James, you'll jump in as well. So in terms of the gym and everything, what date are you looking at to get everybody back in or get people back in training in terms of not just your elite athletes?
So I've been able to train elite athletes the whole time that we've been doing it. You know, obviously Molly had a UFC fight. We've had Cage Warriors fights, and Cage Warriors is a government-sanctioned event, which has been huge for a lot of us because there's always a pretty good chance that someone's going to come in and go, listen, these aren't elite athletes, but Cage Warriors getting that DCMS notification to say we're government run is like phenomenal. So that's been great. We get to open our gyms back up on Monday for solo training and kids classes and stuff. So, you know, we're just going to sort of run with that from there as the different restrictions lift.
How big a boost is it just even getting the solo training back in and getting the kids in that back in especially?
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, if I wasn't able to train the pros, I don't even know what I would have done over this past year. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been heartbreaking. If I'd have said to you like 18 months ago, there's going to be a Chinese super virus that's going to stop people being able to train in your gym, you'd be like, fuck off. That's not going to happen. And now, you know, it's.
And Ben Askren,
this is life.
Aye. That is one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, Ben Askren versus Jake Paul.
Yeah,
he's
that's
the second one. Aye.
Yeah, it really is. It's funny because I think that's one of the good things about fighting, which is it doesn't matter who the two people are. Everyone wants to watch a fight, don't they?
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? Like, would Jake Paul versus Ben Askren in a friggin' 100-meter swimming race sell any tickets? It wouldn't, no. So like that's always the good thing about fighting. You could have like, I know it sounds mad, you could have like the 22 best football players on the planet get together to have like the most intense match ever for the biggest amount of prize money ever. And if two dudes started scrapping in the crowd next to them, fucking everyone would be watching that. You know, fighting's always going to be the best sport, and it's always going to bring in the fans and the money. It's
like hockey over in America. The best part of the hockey is when the guys just get the gloves off and just go for it.
Yeah, I wonder if any of the hockey players are buying the Danaher DVD because he's been showing some of his hockey stuff off, hasn't he, on his BJJ Fanatics? Maybe we'll see some technical striking now in the hockey.
Well, I think the hockey fighting's got a lot better. The guys must be training anyway because see some nice moves in there.
yeah, not bad ones at all, I reckon.
And James, it's 26 up in Scotland, isn't it, for you to get everything sort of moving again?
Yeah, for individual training, and then I think we're all classes, no contact for the 17th of May or something. I'm the same as Paul. Having those fighters the last 14 months I'd have probably went mental, I think, if I wasn't seeing them, because I never seen a couple of them for maybe 3 months. I was coming into the gym. I actually never came to the gym for 2 months. I stayed away from it, and it wasn't good, man. But I can't wait to get everybody back and just get back to normal. But so I think there's definitely going to be a rebuilding phase with students, and what Paul touched on earlier with the fight shows at the grassroots level stuff is especially, I think, so that kind of preparing for all that stuff just now.
Do you expect to see potentially new students and people getting involved in the sport that throughout this maybe looking to get fit and get involved? Is that a potential that could happen for you guys at the gyms?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as James was saying, it's something I didn't touch on, which is like when the regular Joes in the gym haven't been able to train, they've been like living through like the protein fights. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like something that's like massive that I don't think people realise. You know, even though they're not able to train, they're still seeing the guys from the gym competing and fighting and rooting for them and still being part of the gym in that sort of way. I think that's been huge. So like imagine that was taken away from all of us. You know, no MMA, no jiu-jitsu, you know, nothing really going on. Like that would really kill the sport in its entirety. You know, if UFC didn't do shows, Cage Warriors weren't doing shows, there was nothing going on, why would you be interested in MMA? Why would you be interested in doing any of that sort of stuff? So I think like say, you know, I think the whole scene owes Cage Warriors a big thank you. I do think that, like, and UFC as well for keeping us kind of afloat, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cage Warriors especially, I think, are important for us just because sort of your fair weather or maybe just your average fan might not be staying up, but Cage Warriors, I've banged on about it a few times. Just having shows on at a good time really helps.
I don't think Cage Warriors has even scratched the surface of its potential yet.
No.
Like, you got to think they're going to California this year to start doing shows in California. Like, do I think they'll ever be like a competitor to the UFC? No. And I think part of the reason for that is Graham Boylan, who owns Cage Warriors, he understands what Cage Warriors' role and its place is. And I think a lot of people, when they have shows, they don't necessarily understand where and what their place is. You know, I've been loads of shows over the years trying to compete with UFC, and they don't last.
No.
You know what I mean? And then you've got the shows that like have been trying to compete with Cage Warriors, and a lot of them haven't lasted. And the reason is because they don't understand where their place is in sort of the pecking order. So Cage Warriors has been saying for a long time, we're the number one show in Europe. We're the number one show in Europe. A lot of other fight shows have also said that, but I think they're now showing that actually they were the number one show in Europe the whole time, and that it is the place to be at the minute. If you're not signed to UFC, you know, Cage Warriors is probably the place to be to get there. And by the way, that's not saying that like Bellator and Brave and One and all them things aren't fantastic. They're just not in our scene as much as they could be, especially with the pandemic and stuff. I just think that in terms of Europe, if you're looking to go to the UFC and you're a young pro and you're hungry, Cage Warriors is going to be the place that's going to give you the fights that you're going to be able to get there from.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely are. I mean, even when you mention Bellator and stuff like that, Bellator don't make it easy for themselves. Sometimes the way they do their shows, it can be a bit of a nightmare. Just even try to watch a Bellator show. Hopefully, being on iPlayer now they're on.
That's an amazing thing for Bellator. You know, get like that BBC deal, and I'm close to guys at Cage Warriors, but I want to see the scene grow. I don't want to see fighters not being able to make a career that they want. So, like, you know, if people want to go down that like sort of Bellator route and that sort of stuff, like I'm all up for that, because again, the fighters got to sort of choose their careers, but it's also where you know where your role is. So I think a lot of UFC fighters sort of have in their heads, okay, if it doesn't work out in UFC for me, I'm going to go to Bellator. Like, I think that's what a lot of them probably think to themselves. Okay, that if I lose this next fight and I get cut, I'm going to go to Bellator, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And is that starting to creep into like Bellator's? Is that their place? I don't know. You know,
I think it's definitely good for the fighters to have lots of different promotions, because if you look at other sports, like you take football, you've got different leagues and different divisions and all that. Your guys can, for example, maybe a guy that won't quite cut it in the Premier League can maybe go to the first division and make a good living and earn a good career. I think hopefully we'll see that in our sport, where guys will have options out there where they can make a career and sustain themselves in the sport.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think like having more variety is really, really good. I would love to have someone signed to Bellator, someone signed to ONE FC, someone signed to Brave. You know what I mean? I'd love all those things.
Yeah.
But I also say to myself, like, I see what Cage Warriors can do for you, how they can build, especially if you're like a hungry young pro. I think if you're building a career and not just fighting fights, there's a difference between the two things, I think. So if you're a young pro and you've got real potential, if you can get to that Cage Warriors title sort of area, you know that you're only like 1 or 2 fights away from getting to the UFC. Okay. And, you know, I know you had like Jordan Vichenik on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like the perfect example of someone that's like doing that, if you know what I mean. So like, if I said to you, okay, there's probably like only maybe Mohamed Mokaev, probably in the UK, who's took a different sort of stance on it. He's gone to Brave and he's building his career up that way, which is like really good. But it's having that plan, isn't it? Like, you don't want to leave it to chance to get to the UFC and hope that they maybe notice you. You've got to sort of build your way there. And even without fans or like a huge following, for example, like Paddy has, you still need to be able to sort of cement the reason why you're signing. And I think the Cage Warriors title is a great way of doing that.
Yeah, it's a proven route. Very rarely do you see other... I mean, obviously, James, Danny Henry had a bit of a different route. Danny went down the EFC route and then went for there. So there is other routes, but the UFC, I think is the Cage Warriors route is probably the the clearest one for European fighters and UK fighters.
Yeah,
sorry, mate. Go on, James. Go on.
It definitely is, man. And the thing is, if you come through Cage Warriors and get to the UFC, you know you're going to do well in UFC. I think, because you're not getting easy fights in Cage Warriors. Look, Ian Dean, we say this all the time. Ian Dean is the best matchmaker in the sport. I think. I'm surprised. I'm surprised it doesn't work for the UFC. And I know what you're saying about Cage Warriors know their place, and they're going to grow. I think when they go to America and stuff like that, I can see them taking over maybe even like LFA and stuff like that. They'll be bigger than these shows. And there's a reason why all the gyms and all the good gyms want guys on Cage Warriors, because they know like that. And all the hungry young fighters, if I go to Cage Warriors and I get a run through my division, which is never going to be easy, I can get to the UFC.
Do you think, like, especially on like the smaller local scene, some of the coaches maybe who promote their own shows sort of a lot of the time keep the ticket sellers on their own shows rather sometimes than pass them on to like the bigger shows?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, they do, man. And they also don't want them going to the bigger shows because they lose control of the matchmaking.
Yeah.
And a lot of fighters will end up getting found out that way. I think when they go to Cage Warriors, they can stay on the small regional shows and have a bit of an influence over who they're fighting because they do sell tickets and stuff like that. But it's kind of combination of insecurity and lack of ambition, I think. And generally, when guys come through these shows and somehow end up in the UFC, they get found out pretty quick.
I think that's like a huge thing, and I don't think sometimes fighters even see it. You know what I mean? Because they are selling tickets and they're doing well, and the winning fights, that sort of thing. You don't look at maybe what the bigger picture is, and the bigger picture is like, okay, well, where are you actually going? You know, what is your plan? Like, I don't know about you, I'm sure you do, but I sit down with my fighters and I'm like, right, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to get you these wins, get you on Cage Warriors, look for this route, hopefully by this amount of fights, you'll be looking at a title shot and going that way. Like, that's a proven route to do that. Yeah. I think, like, going any sort of other way, you're leaving to too much chance.
Yeah. There is, like James said, there is proven pathways, and Cage Warriors is the most obvious one. So I think that's the way we're lining up stuff now. We're amateur guys, and then obviously we've got guys at Cage Warriors. We're looking Stevie, and just keep building on what we're doing, dude. But I think that's what some of these guys are really happy, just being like a big name in their own little village or their own wee town, fighting on a show that's in a town hall in their whatever village or town they live in, and beating guys that are absolutely rubbish. Whereas the younger guys now are coming through and they're like, I want to get to UFC. This is what I want to do for a living. I want to make money. They're going to have to go through shows like Cage Warriors and stuff like that to get there.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose the other thing as well is, like, Facebook managers that reach out to fighters. You get a lot of that sort of stuff. They're reaching out, hey, why don't you let me manage you, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't advertise myself as like a manager, but I could certainly got more contacts than this guy and get my guys on better shows than this guy possibly could. But, the moment I see an amateur fighter's got a manager, I'm like, what the hell is your coach doing? Do you know what I mean? It's like crazy.
Yeah, it's pointless.
Yeah, Cage Warriors going to America is exciting in the sense as well as it could be an opportunity for the guys fighting over here to get out there and get experience across in the States. It just opens up more doors.
Of course, and I hope that is definitely the case. I mean, I would love to see, because what you got to, this is probably like a good thing. So what you've got to think to yourself about is, if Cage Warriors do their first show in America, the Cage Warriors world title, all of a sudden, the people that are fighting for it, it's going to blow. So, like, the same people that are going to fight for the Cage Warriors lightweight world title, they're going to be the people that are fighting for, like James says, like LFA titles. They're going to be the guys that, like, they're going to really open up that division. You're not just talking about a European level now, you're talking about a world level.
Yeah, man, it's it's exciting. I look forward to it coming, and it just adds a bit of, it's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It's something to look forward to, and I mean, I certainly, with the shows Cage Warriors have been putting on and the talent levels we've got here, you can only see that increasing if they open up across to the States and that as well. It's great for the promotion and ultimately great for the UFC as well.
Are we going to see like a Californian Ian Dean, or is he just going to stay and do like the UK and European shows? That's what I want to know. No.
He's totally going to change. You'll not be answering the phone as quickly. Be wearing a hat and sandals and stuff. Totally changed, man.
I love Ian. I think, like James said before, he should get more props for like what he's done in the UK in terms of the scene. Like he's like the best person in UK MMA as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think it's the fact he doesn't seek it out that makes him as good as he is.
Will you please get him on the podcast?
I've asked him, man. He didn't even respond to it. And then about 3 days later, he's like, I've got a match for you. And I was like, what about my podcast question? And then just didn't respond to it again.
I think that's what we call in the business fuck no.
If anyone's got stories, it's him. Do you know what I mean? Like,
brilliant, man.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of beers and get him on the show, and it'll get interesting.
That's my favourite part of Cage. What is after the fight, catching up with Ian. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Paul, we'll not keep you any longer, but it's been great having you on the show, mate. It's been fun chatting. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.